I was just going to go through you look at the GitHub and the readmes.
Okay. Let's see. All right, so like that guy, like that. Okay, so we can just share that whenever you want.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the lights are all working.
So we don't have any viewers yet.
Yeah, let me do it. I'll log in and make sure everything's working.
Can you see it?
Give me 1 second.
Okay, we're getting some viewers now.
Yeah, it looks like it's working.
Well, welcome to the first office hours for the Mobile Cloud Computing with Android Security MOOC. So we're going to talk today about some of the questions about Assignment 1 and just give you some quick walkthrough of the expectations for Assignment 1, and then a preview of Assignment 2 that's going to be released later today. So I'm going to go ahead and attempt to screen share here while I go through the... Okay. I think I've, yeah, if I can, let's see. Yeah, what do you have to, let's see, I gotta minimize.
Bring the web browser up.
Okay.
And then go to share and you should see it.
Okay. I think I've got it. We're gonna pull up the first assignment here. Oops. And Doug, can you see my screen? Just make sure that it's sharing correctly. Yeah, it looks like it's working.
So yeah, right now it's yes, it's a web browser.
Okay, great. So for the first assignment, this is actually a fairly challenging assignment in many respects, in that identifying security vulnerabilities is a hard thing to do, especially in a non-trivial code base. The I Remember app isn't the most complex app ever, but there's enough code there that if you're just scanning it and trying to figure out what are all of the possible problems there, it's going to be pretty hard. We've tried to go through and make this assignment mirror the videos, and what we've said in the videos is as closely as possible. So what you want to do when you're walking through this assignment is you really want to look carefully. First, make sure and read the links that are posted here about some vulnerabilities that were in other apps. And one of those types of vulnerabilities is going to show up in this assignment. It's really an interesting one that you might not normally think of. And then what you're going to do is you want to really walk through the videos very carefully and capture sort of the contents of what they're trying to break down, some of the ideas in there about secure defaults and other things. And then download the code base, and this assignment is divided into 2 parts. The first part is identifying the vulnerabilities. And we've created a quiz that allows you to select different lines of code as being the source of a vulnerability. So if we went to start the quiz now, we can see that what you have is questions that give you different files within the application and line numbers that you can go and assess if that is the actual source of the vulnerability or a vulnerability. And what you want to do is, there are things that you may stylistically not agree with or that you think are issues, but really what you want to do is select the things that directly map back to the videos. We tried to make this as direct mapping as possible, because there are other things you can always complain about or not be happy about, and we may have things that we aren't particularly happy about, but we wanted to get the source of things that directly map back to things in the videos, which is still tricky to do. In many cases, unless you know the answer going into it, it can be hard to spot the different issues that are there. Now, a lot of people have asked questions about the scoring of this quiz. And the way that it works is that there are, I believe, 6 points that are associated with each question. And then each question has some number of options that you can check. A correct answer that receives all 6 points for a question is an answer that has exactly the right boxes checked for that answer. So if you check something that shouldn't be checked, you're going to lose points. If you don't check something that should be checked, you're going to lose points. And basically, since each question has a different number of possible options, you can get some funny looking scores. I know some people have complained about that, and some people have also asked about why are we not immediately getting the answers given to us. And part of the reason you're not getting the answers given to you is that you have 100 tries for this quiz, and then after the quiz you have to go and fix the vulnerabilities. So if we gave away the answers, then you would be able to go and just resubmit the quiz and get a correct solution to everything. So what we're going to do is, once the deadline for the assignment is passed, we'll go back through all of the questions, walk through the solution and what were all the vulnerabilities, and explain each one, and then explain appropriate fixes. And that way, during the peer grading, you'll be able to check and see if people fixed those vulnerabilities correctly. So going back to the assignment, there's going to be a couple different things you want to look at. You should look at both the source code and the Android manifest file. So one thing that you may see is that there are questions that refer to specific lines in the Android manifest. For example, this line is annotated in the Android manifest. When you're looking at the line numbers referring to the manifest, look for these comments in the manifest to know which line we're referring to in the XML, just in case your browser formats it differently, or inside your IDE if it lists the line number slightly differently. Same thing inside of the different source files in the application. We've annotated the lines that we're going to be having in the quiz with the line number that we expect them to be on. But just in case for some reason you accidentally hit enter somewhere in one of these source files and change the line numbering, or you accidentally format them, we've got comments out to the side of the lines that we're talking about to make sure that it's clear which ones we're talking about. So if you are looking at the quiz and then you look at the line numbers and it doesn't seem to match up, you should see these comments on the lines that we're looking for. So you'll want to walk through that source code very carefully and try to find the things that directly are causing vulnerabilities in the application and map back to, or creating a very poor design choice that directly maps back to something that was in the videos. So I'm going to go ahead and go back to take some questions if we have any questions. Okay. Looks like there's no questions yet. Okay, so I will go on to the second assignment. So a little bit later today, it's already in the GitHub repo, so you can start looking at it. But the official assignment on Coursera will go out sometime after these office hours, probably before noon. And there's an assignment A, or assignment 2A, and assignment 2B. This is going to be the second assignment, and there's two different options that you have to complete. Assignment 2A refers to option A. Assignment 2B refers to option B. You want to complete one of these, not both. You're not going to get credit for doing both. You're only going to get credit for doing one of them. But the rationale behind having two different versions of them is that one of the assignments builds on the solution from the last assignment in the prior MOOC in the sequence. So if you have built up a video service that has ratings for users, you built a client for it, you put a lot of work into it, and so this is a continuation of that assignment, but adding in security. So you add in essentially user accounts, SSL to the connections, and then you add in a number of rules to the original assignment. So this is the video service assignment where you can upload videos, download videos, get the metadata for them, and rate the videos. And if you go and look at the instructions, the big difference in this is you're going to use OAuth to allow clients to authenticate with the server. And then you're going to add rules that require certain OAuth scopes for the interactions, so get and post. For example, get will require a read scope and post will require a write scope in the OAuth tokens that are given out. And then there are some other requirements that you should go and look at carefully, and we've tried to put most of those in bold, that require going and changing how the original video service operates. And the big change is that user accounts are being added into the video service. So for example, if you are uploading a video, when you upload a video, whoever the currently authenticated principal or user is that's logging in becomes the owner of that video. And then afterwards, they're the only ones that can upload the binary data for the video or overwrite the video. So you'll have to go in and change the logic within your existing controller to add these security checks for the currently authenticated user. Also, you'll see this for the binary data. Only the person who created the video can also upload the binary data for that video. Then you'll see a new API for ratings. So you may have created your own rating scheme in the past, and you'll need to adapt it to fit this scheme for ratings. But it should be pretty straightforward to adapt most of the things that you're going to need to do to this rating scheme. But the key difference is before you could just rate anonymously. Now when you rate a video, it's going to take whoever the currently authenticated user is or principal, and it's going to take their username and it's going to associate it as the owner of that rating. So if they try to go and rate it a second time, it should only update their existing rating. It shouldn't try to create a new rating for it. So if I rate a video with rating 1 star and then I go and rate it with 3 stars, there shouldn't be 2 ratings now for that video, one of a 1 star and one of a 3 star. So that's the big difference and change. In this version of the assignment and in the second one as well, we've provided a bunch of code to try to help you out. If you look in the auth package, there is a configuration for OAuth. So this is a Spring Boot configuration that gives you a bunch of user accounts. It goes and sets up a bunch of basics around the OAuth stuff. And getting all the OAuth stuff together and working correctly with the accounts can take quite a bit of work. And we wanted this to be a doable assignment, but at the same time give you an example of how this could work. So we've provided a bunch of code for you to go and get bootstrapped. Now, if you don't want to use our code and you'd like the challenge of doing this all yourself, you're more than welcome to go and do all of the OAuth configuration yourself, and that's perfectly fine. Feel free to go ahead and do that. But this code is there if you want to use it. There's also some other things we've given you in order to meet the video service API that we expect. We've got a couple simple classes. One is average video rating. So this is just a simple object that represents the metadata about a video, its current average rating, the ID of the video, and the total number of ratings it's received. And this is just to help clients out when they're navigating to it. Most of the other code should look pretty familiar, and we've just left out the controllers. If you go There's no controllers here, and the idea is that you're going to use your controllers from your prior implementation and take them and adapt them for this assignment. Now, you're more than welcome to complete this assignment if you never did the previous MOOCs assignment and you think this one looks more interesting. It'll probably be a lot of work because it essentially combines work that was done in several assignments and adds on top of it. So if you haven't done the prior assignment, it'll probably be a lot of work, but you're more than welcome to complete option A. There's no restriction that you have to have completed the prior MOOC in order to do option A. It's just if you want to do option A, you can, but we would recommend that you've done the prior assignments. For option B, it's very similar, except that it doesn't have as many requirements on the video service as the prior option. And the reason for that is we assume that people will be doing some of this from scratch. So for this one, all that's needed for the core API is the ability to get the current list of videos, post a video, and then grab the metadata for a specific video. So this is just the metadata operations. None of the multi-part uploads have to be implemented. And then slightly differently from doing ratings for this version, and we've tried to balance these assignments out so they're roughly equal in complexity. If you completed the last MOOC and then you complete option A, it should be roughly the same amount of work as if you didn't do the assignments for the last MOOC and you're doing option B. So for this one, you can upload video metadata and download and access that video metadata. And then the big security thing that's going to be added here is user accounts. So you can have people like a video or unlike a video, or you can get a list of the people that have liked a specific video. And this should use the user accounts to determine, for example, I shouldn't be able to like a video twice. So you want to make sure that you use the user accounts and the authentication. Again, this one's using the OAuth authentication that's been provided as an example in this assignment to allow users to log in. But you want to use that OAuth authentication to track who uploads a video. So again, you can keep people from overwriting other people's videos. And then also to keep track of who has liked a video or not liked a video, or unliked a video, and get lists of people who've liked them. Very similar code base is provided for this one. We provide all of the auth information, the OAuth configuration to help you get going. One of the other things for both assignments is there is a integration test that's the video service API test. This is what you want to make sure and run against your code to ensure that you've passed everything and passed the expectations for the specification. And you can walk through that to look through what are the expectations of how your code's going to operate. And so there's the same thing for the A version of the assignment. So if I go to the A version of assignment, there's also an integration test here that has, it's called Video Service API Test. And again, it walks through all of the different tests that are expected. And you want to be able to go through and make sure that you can pass all of those tests. Again, that assignment's going to be released later today. And the code is up there so you can take a look at it, but the actual assignment on Coursera will go out a little bit later. Okay, so here's the first question we've got. When I adapt the video service, do I have to make a separate login screen and procedure? So for the second version of the assignment, we're just working with the server side of this. So you don't have to have a login screen because it's going to use OAuth, and it's really not designed for, in this example, for something where you have a UI for it yet. But in the third assignment, there may be a mobile client for all of this, an adaptation of your prior mobile client or a new mobile client that allows you to log in. So you don't need that yet, but you can bet that in the third assignment, you're going to see something like that. Okay. In my case, I last did the part 1 and part 2 with Dr. Porter, so you recommend I rather do option 2. Yes, if you haven't done the assignment in the prior MOOC, it's probably too much work to go through and do option A. You can take a look at it. If you feel comfortable going and implementing all of it, you're more than welcome to, but more than likely you're going to want to do option B if you haven't done the previous assignment in the MOOC, just because you have a lot of code already if you've done those previous ones that you're going to need for that version of the spec. Okay. Would the OAuth module cover how to design secure APIs for a web service? It depends on what you're looking for. It covers how OAuth works and has some discussions of why use OAuth versus something else and some of the considerations of that. You know, producing a secure API is a very large, you know, could mean a lot of different things. So it is not a comprehensive guide to say that, you know, if you've done OAuth and followed what's in the videos, that you're going to, you know, be sure that you have a secure service. Obviously, if you take the principles that are in the earlier videos that relate to mobile and some of the secure coding practices there, you use things that are discussed in the session information, OAuth, doing SSL, those types of things in the videos. All of those things will help you to create a secure API, but purely about the design of the URL schemes, how parameters pass, those types of things. We don't really go into depth in that. There's not quite time in this MOOC. But if you have specific questions, please post them on the forums and I'll be glad to follow up on them. Okay. Let me check now and see if there's any questions in the forums. All right. Let's see here. Okay, just a couple questions in the forums. First question is about the coverage of the pre-recorded video lectures. There is a discrepancy between the syllabus and the video lectures in naming. So we're going to update the syllabus. The videos that have been pushed out are the definitive version of the content that's in the course, and the naming is not matching up on that. But we'll go and update the syllabus so it matches the naming. That was a mistake on my part, that I didn't get the syllabus updated after I changed the naming. There was a question about the office hours being held and going over the solution for assignment 1, and we followed up on this. Yeah, we're not going over the solution for assignment 1. We're just describing assignment 1, which is what we did today. So that was a good point out thing that was a typo in there. And then a question about the timing for the first virtual office hours. Okay, we've got a few more questions here. Does assignment 2 have both auto grading and peer grading? No, it only has peer grading, but there is a unit test that you can run to check if you've implemented everything correctly. So theoretically, if you run that unit test, it passes all of the tests, and then you zip up your code correctly and turn it in, your peer grader should give you a perfect score. And the peer grading steps are designed to make it clear that if you've done those things correctly, you should be getting a perfect score. So it's not officially auto-graded, but it does have a unit test that will allow you to check everything beforehand. So recommended to watch videos of week 3, maybe 4 already to complete this assignment. You'll want to go through and watch, begin watching the videos as you go to complete the assignment. You're going to have quite a while to complete this assignment. It's going to be more than the typical 2 weeks. So the due date will be after all of those videos, even if you're watching them just at a week pace or less per module. You'll still be able to watch them all before it's due and be able to, hopefully, by looking at the assignment spec, it'll give you a richer understanding of the material as you're going through it, and also help you to figure out what questions to ask yourself as you're watching the videos. I'm unable to push location coordinates from Eclipse to the emulator. I can't seem to figure out what might be wrong. This is something that would be best to post on the forums, as it probably requires some more detailed follow-up on your setup in Eclipse and what you're trying to do. So if you can post that on the forum, we can try to help out with that, and your peers can also help out. How much knowledge of Java Spring is needed for all assignments? We're expecting basically knowledge that's commensurate with the prior class. You should be able to get up to speed, you know, and if you've got the prior classes knowledge Java Spring, you should be in good shape. If you've never done Java Spring, this is roughly equivalent to being able to create a simple web application, use the different method annotations to create request paths for that application, be able to use Spring Data JPA to persist some data. That's about the level of complexity that you would need to go and complete this assignment if you did not do the prior MOOC. It seems to me that there are 2 ways to fix the manifest file bug in assignment 1. Is that possible? Yes, there are probably there could be more than one way to fix it. It's a subtle bug. I'm trying to think through what I say so I don't end up giving away any answers, but it should be possible probably to fix it more than one way. And there's probably pros and cons to different ways of fixing it. But yes, I think you could say that it's probably possible to fix this in multiple ways. Could you illustrate how an intent filter can undermine the security of my app? I can, and I'm going to try to do this very carefully to not give away any too much on the assignment. But if you think through it, anytime you have you say that your app wants to receive intents, you are basically telling the system that it should open you up to receive intent. So you're no longer being private anymore in some respects. You're saying, you know, other components in the system can now send intents to my activities and services in my application. So if you write something, you know, write an activity that you never receive an intent, then by default, Android is not going to expose it to the rest of the system. Now, if you go and you start receiving intents, yes, so if you go and you start receiving intents, then you're creating essentially an interface to the rest of the apps and system potentially on the device that allows them to interact with your code. Now, if you haven't thought through very carefully that interface and whether or not, and what you're exposing functionality wise, and whether or not you have properly coded your interface to handle bugs, and also you're not accidentally giving away functionality that you don't intend to expose, you're okay. But if you create a bug and you're not properly evaluating the data that other apps are sending you, which should not be trusted by default, if you're not careful about what functionality you expose, you could end up in a situation where you create a security vulnerability. Do you have any suggestions about blogs and other sources of information where we can follow the latest developments about Android security? That's a good question. I'm not up on any particular blogs. I read a lot of things like Hacker News and Ars Technica, and I see a lot of things in the news there. There are also usually Android bugs get reported pretty widely in the media. So if you go and look at those things, you can find things. Obviously, you can go and look at the presentations at Black Hat and DEF CON and other things, and usually they have a slew of Android things as well that you can find. I don't know of any blog, but if anybody knows of some great blogs, please post them on the forums. I'd be interested in reading them and as well. But most of what I catch up on is from a variety of different sources, none of which are directly dedicated to Android security. Do we need to do any encryption for the security? So I'm going to hold off on this one, but I'm going to say in general, if we didn't, think about the right way to answer these questions to make sure I don't give away any answers. But we're I think it'd be to fix the. Let me put it this way: to fix the bugs, you shouldn't have to go and write any Java encryption code. That's what I would say. Best practices may not be being followed by the app, but to solve the problems that we're looking for, you don't have to go and write code to encrypt some credentials or hash some credentials or do anything like that. We're not expecting you to implement bcrypt on Android to store credentials or something like that. None of that should have to be done to fix any vulnerabilities that may be in the assignment. All right, well, I think that's the last of the questions. So unless there's anything else, thank you for attending the office hours. Please follow up on the forum with any questions once assignment 2 goes live in a little bit here. And we'll talk to you next week during office hours. Thank you.